Welcome to Team Scene 20, back again this week. And this week we are looking at design thinking. So if you've ever wanted to build out some strategies to help you think about problem solving or building your next project and really want to understand what you're trying to fix, this might be the session for you. I've got a great speaker today. We've brought in the best because I have brought in the amazing Hanna Greenfield. And Hanna is a co-founder and co-lead of the Microsoft design thinking community at Microsoft. If she can't answer your questions, I don't know who we can bring in. So I'm really excited to see how Hanna's going to help us with our design thinking. And I'm going to go straight over to you, Hanna.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. Today, we are talking about design thinking, which gives us a mindset to be able to innovate every day. And this is why I find this so exciting. Now, where in the past we would have come together in perhaps face-to-face workshops for problem solving and innovation, we have found ourselves doing this virtually more and more over the last couple of years. And thankfully, we have some amazing tools to be able to come together virtually to drive continuous innovation. But first, let's look at what design thinking really is. So design thinking is a creative problem-solving method. Now, you might have heard of it in the past, but it's a human-centered method, and it encourages us, all of us, people, organizations, to focus on the human part of what we're solving for, which really leads to better products, services, and internal processes. Now, at its core, design thinking gives us this method to combine empathy, creativity, and rationality to drive success. And that could be business success, customer success, personal success. In fact, I'm reading a book at the moment by Bill Burnett called Designing Your Life. And this applies design thinking methods to your own life. So it can really be applied to any context. But the important thing is that we're meeting a human need. So here at Microsoft, we aim to take a human-centered approach, and we begin discovery for digital transformation through listening and consulting and really deeply understanding our customers' challenges before we think about solutions. So in terms of the process, so design thinking gives us this systematic approach to problem solving. And as I said before, it starts with customers, end users, perhaps employees in mind, and the ability to create a better future for them. So you really have to put yourself in their shoes. Now, I like this very simplified model because it's quite memorable. And we start the process with asking the what is. Now, what is the current status? What are the challenges? What are the problems in this space? And then we go to the what if. This is the fun bit, the bit with no boundaries to your thinking, and you're imagining a better future. Because ultimately, innovation is about seeing the world not as it is, but as it could be. But we then have to make some choices from that pool of ideas. So we're distilling those ideas into what's feasible, what's viable, and what's desirable. Now, feasibility is what's functionally possible within the foreseeable future. Viability is what's likely to become part of a sustainable business model. And desirability is what makes sense to people and for people. And undoubtedly, desirability is the most important part. So we need to resolve each of these constraints and bring them to a balance. Now, the next phase is the what wows. This is where we test the assumptions around our ideas. Perhaps we're even building a prototype. And then finally, what works. And that's where we really test it on the market, if you like, or a larger pool of people to see if it really works with end users. Now, I also wanted to share, before I go into some specific examples, I wanted to share this double diamond process. You may have seen this before. This is the design process model developed by the British Design Council in 2005. Now, the main feature of the double diamond is its emphasis on the divergent and convergent thinking. So where many ideas are created first before refining and narrowing down to the best idea. So this is happening twice in this model, once to confirm the problem definition and once to create the solution. So the two diamonds really represent a process of exploring an issue more widely or deeply. So that's where we're talking about divergent thinking. So we're creating choices. And then taking focused action or convergent thinking. In other words, making choices from the pool of insights of ideas. Now, this will all come to life in just a moment when I share an example of some exercises that really encourages us to think this way. So we effectively alternate between right brain and left brain thinking to uncover more defined outcomes. Now, it's quite rare that great ideas emerge as a bolt of lightning from the sky. More often than not, great ideas come from exploring that problem space, applying empathy and coming up with ideas and solutions that have the capability to solve that problem for a particular end user. So my favorite quote, and Albert Einstein said it best, he said, "If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes about the solution." Now, we're all guilty of jumping into solutions far too quickly. So this would just encourage us to stop and really explore that problem space, define what the problem is before we start going into solutions and ideation. Now, we talk a lot about empathy, and for some, it comes really easily, and for others, not so much. So I wanted to bring up this quote from our CEO, Satya Nadella, which says, "The source of innovation comes from having a deep sense of empathy." And this is really about applying empathy to explore the challenges and the problems for our end users. And sometimes we need to practice our ability to have empathy, or maybe we need to use some proven methods to take that approach. So, in the last couple of years, we find that we probably don't travel as much as before. I'm a huge proponent of in-person workshops. I love them. I miss them. You sort of know the body language of people around you, the fun you have, all of that stuff. It's very limbic. But we find ourselves adapting to a more virtual way of innovating and problem solving, which is entirely possible with the tools and technology available to us. So there are tools like Microsoft Whiteboard, Klaxoon, MURAL, and many others that can be used for virtual whiteboarding. And it's a little bit different than running an innovation workshop in person, as it's sometimes difficult to replicate that energy in the room. But these tools are getting better and better at driving engagement and collaboration, with everybody contributing with insights and ideas. So I'm going to share with you a few examples. And by the way, there are lots of different tools, so I'm only going to share a few as a little bit of a taster. So first of all, we have Microsoft Whiteboard, which if you are using Microsoft 365, this will be available to you. In a meeting, you can simply use the share button, click on Whiteboard, and then spin up a new or a pre-prepared whiteboard in your meeting. Now, there are some fantastic ready-made templates there already that support design thinking. And this one in particular shows the creative matrix template, which is a great way to brainstorm with a team across different parameters. And I'll show a little bit more detail on that in a moment as well. Another tool I use quite frequently is MURAL. And MURAL has a wealth of fantastic templates as well to use. And you can also use the voting sessions to quickly get people to vote on their favorite ideas. So if you have MURAL licenses and this has been enabled for your organization, you can simply go to the meeting toolbar and select the apps function and then launch your MURAL app right within a Teams meeting. And then finally, Klaxoon. So to actually bring the design thinking process to life, the double diamond sort of divergent convergent thinking, I'm going to use a Klaxoon board in a moment to show you some of the different exercises that we might use. And that's not an exclusive list at all. There are lots of different design thinking exercises and templates, but I will mention the rose thorn bud exercise, how might we statements, creative matrix, affinity clustering, and importance difficulty matrix. Don't worry, it's not going to take long. We've only got 20 minutes, so I will go through this very quickly. But Klaxoon is another tool that you can also use within your Teams meeting. If you're licensed, if it has been enabled for your organization, you use the apps function again in your meetings toolbar to launch the app. Right, so let's go on to a demo. So I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to share my mural board, my Klaxoon board, apologies. Here we go. So in this particular exercise, in this particular workshop, I've actually started with a rose thorn bud exercise. So I've sent the attendees a questionnaire prior to the workshop and asked them what works well, the roses, what are their challenges, the thorns, and what are their opportunities, the buds. And I then play this back in the workshop to them and ask them for any further insight that we might have missed. Now, this is about diverging. So this is about gathering lots of information. Then we go into figuring out, have we actually nailed the problem statement? Have we figured out what that statement actually should look like before we go into the creative matrix ideation session? So it's actually quite important to think about the semantics here, because once we go into the ideation, we will all be thinking back at this problem statement, and we phrase it as a how might we statement, because actually that encourages us to think about how we could collectively collaborate on this rather than, just simply reading out a problem statement. So use how might we in front of the statement. After we've decided on the actual problem statement, we go on to the fun bit, the creative ideation. So we use something called the creative matrix, which I already showed you on the whiteboard example. Now, in this case, we have some defined parameters across the left-hand side, and we may use personas at the top, or we could use different parameters here, but quite often we see personas. And what we can do here, and you can see I've only given 15 minutes for this exercise. If you have a group of 10 people in your workshop, you will very quickly get lots and lots of ideas across each of these parameters. And I always use a bit of a wild card as well, just in case some of those ideas don't fit any of those categories. Now, we at this point will have gathered so many ideas, we actually need to figure out how we can create some clusters and themes out of those. So we're again converging. We're starting to converge to sort of figure out what the themes are, what are we going to focus on. So in this case, we've taken those ideas that we put in the creative matrix and actually clustered them into similar themes. And the purple post-it notes here are names that we've given for those themes. So to further then define what we're going to take forward, so converge even further, we are going to use the importance and difficulty matrix. Now, I typically don't have the grid on this matrix when we start this exercise, but we ask people in conversation to start placing the different ideas and themes across the importance difficulty matrix as to, are they highly important, highly difficult, where do they sit, and where do they sit in relation to each other as well. And at the very end, we draw this grid, and suddenly we start to see that those ideas in the top left corner are highly important and actually highly feasible. So therefore, we should probably think about getting those done. Whereas those in the right, top right corner, are highly important, but also very difficult to achieve. So maybe those are separate projects, or we have to measure whether the effort is worth it. Now, I'm going to stop sharing here, and I've only shown you a snapshot of design thinking exercises here, but I hope that gave you an idea of divergent convergent thinking and the double diamond process. And what I would just say in closing is, don't forget to explore the problem space, take a human focus, so put yourselves in your customers, end users, employee shoes, whoever you are solving for, apply empathy, be creative and have fun with design thinking, and use the technology that's available to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Hanna. You did share some great resources with us too, didn't you? So that was a great session. I think we forget sometimes that, these tools are available to us, and actually, what can we better use them for? So I love the way that you pointed out some of those other tools that are not Microsoft tools, but we know that customers use all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different tools, but I think the important thing is to try and figure out what that process is, that systematic problem-solving method is that works for you and for your organization. And design thinking gives you a little bit of a framework around that. And actually, all of these tools now, most of these tools now have predefined templates for design thinking. So do use them.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Have a lovely rest of your day.